Good morning everyone, and welcome to International Women's Day 2021 and this Halo Project event. We're delighted to have so many people with us and to join us in this day of celebration. International Women's Day is a day to celebrate the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women, and it's also a call to action. We're going to be talking about that shortly. I'm Claire Preston, I'm Director of North Yorkshire Education Services, but I'm here today as Chair of the Halo Project. Today you'll hear from a number of remarkable people who are standing with us with a collective voice, but I'd like to ask you to mute your voices, if you don't mind, for the course of the webinar. We're hoping there will be some time at the end of the session to ask some questions, but if everybody could please have their microphones on mute, that would be really helpful. We are recording the session. I hope everybody's happy with that. We have the authorization of all of the speakers, and there will be a copy of the video on the Halo Project website soon after the event. So today's theme is Choose to Challenge. And this International Women's Day, the Halo Project is choosing to challenge through the launch of our global charter, the complicity and inaction surrounding sexual violence in education settings globally, as well as the lack of interventional support available to victims and survivors. We are choosing to challenge violence in education settings. We all know the transformative power of education. It really does have the power to change lives, and we believe that everyone should be able to complete their education free from harm or the threat of it. Today we'll hear from Halo Project founder Yasmin Khan and other remarkable guest speakers as we work collectively to challenge violence in education settings, and we hope that some of you will join us as a result of today's session. Our Global Charter sets out 5 key aims to ensure leadership, support and action is taken to eradicate all forms of gender-based violence within each signatory's institution. As I say, I'm delighted to be joined by some remarkable people today. I'd like to introduce them briefly now, and then they'll introduce themselves. Yasmin Khan is the founder of the Halo Project charity and National Advisor to the Welsh Government on Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence. Nazir Afzal, OBE, is Halo Project patron, former Chief Prosecutor and National Advisor to the Welsh Government on Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence. Caroline Wright is the Director General of the British Education Supplies Association. Ruth Colversion is co-founder and director of the Halo Project South Africa, along with Amina Mahmood. Gumela Salela is United Kingdom Country Head for Brand South Africa. And Nazdemir is Deputy Head, United Kingdom Region Northeast, at the Department for International Trade. Without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Yasmin Khan, founder of the Halo Project charity.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Claire. Welcome, everybody, to Halo Project's International Women's Day, and what a remarkable day it is in the calendar of promoting gender equality. Today is particularly important for us because the Choose to Challenge campaign is what we find ourselves doing tirelessly to ensure women's rights are upheld and that violence in all its form can be eradicated. And one of the key things to driving this agenda forward is education and changing societal norms. And we all know the important role that education has to do that. At the Halo Project UK, what we do is we provide a victim support service, but we also raise awareness with our strategic partners. One of the things I'm particularly proud of is the Halo University Hubs, and that's really where this discussion is stemming from. We've established Halo Hubs in the universities of Durham, Sunderland, Northumbria, York St John, and we're now also in discussion with Southampton. And what that is doing within universities is engaging with the student population and raising awareness on violence against women and girls, and ensuring students are at the forefront of changing those societal norms in those university hubs. And this particular charter we developed with students in mind has really come about from an event that we did as part of Sexual Awareness Week, where a piece of research with students involved highlighted 62% of those interviewed experienced some form of sexual violence. What was equally alarming, though, was only 2% felt they were comfortable enough to report that violence on campus. Now, that simply is something that's not unique to the UK. So by working with our strategic partners in South Africa, we're delighted to work with other partners across the globe to launch this charter so that we can start to implement some changes. Now, gender equality isn't just important for economics, it's absolutely critical to preventing violence against women and girls. In fact, in the UNICEF Global Action Plan, one of the key principles focusing is around strengthening institutional strategies and systems. I can't think of a better way that a charter can be used globally within education settings where we can actually start to strengthen those institutional strategies and encourage those systems to be available within universities that can challenge and adopt a zero tolerance to sexual violence. That's absolutely key. As my role within the Welsh Government, I was really proud to be involved in a national campaign to ensure the message is given loud and clear, and there's a very strong commitment. And that was called Don't Be a Bystander. We hear the term, domestic abuse, violence against women and girls is everybody's business. So why do we, as bystanders in society, let abuse continue without standing up and standing together to ensure where it's exposed, we can help to eradicate that? This charter that we're hoping to establish with our international partners is going to form one of those recommendations that UNICEF highlighted in their Global Action Plan. We really want to ensure that as far as we can is use a good practice that we've developed in the UK through the university hubs, where we've really had some change within universities. Leadership has become involved. They've developed stronger policies and procedures about reporting of incidents. We've been able to ensure there's a safe environment within those universities so that people are comfortable and confident to come forward and make those disclosures. And we are in an international community. The university hubs that we have, in the ones that I've listed, are from global communities. So the World Health Organization mirrors the issues around how prevalent violence against women actually is. And the statistics as they currently stand state that 1 in 3 women worldwide will experience some form of harm. Now that simply cannot continue at the rate that that's happening, and we need to work with partners to ensure we can do what we can to root this evil out. And if we talk about gender equality, it's not just about promoting race equality or gender equality. Equality of opportunity actually makes sense. It's good economics. We know the World Bank have issued a report where the employment and entrepreneur has the significance of harm in those communities cost 15% of the GDP. So that's some serious, if you're not looking at the social aspect, let's look at the economic impact violence against women and girls can have on society and the economy. And that's why we're absolutely delighted today to bring together our South African partners. We had the pleasure of visiting a township in Soweto, and the stark reality of every corner in the world. This is something that we haven't given particular focus to and work to establish an international partnership. This is what today is all about. We're helping to establish that partnership, to launch the charter, and to ask our partners on the call today and far-reaching to join us and ensure that there's a strong commitment around leadership and action to eradicate sexual violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Absolutely. And as I said, we will be talking later about opportunities to get involved with our cause. Next, I'd like to I have the honour of introducing Nazir Afzal. Over to you, Nazir, please.
Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed, Yasmin and Claire. And firstly, congratulations to all of you and on International Women's Day. I always get this comment from men saying, where's our day? Well, our day is 365 days a year. And so we need to celebrate, and today's a day of celebration, but at the same time, as Yasmin has just said and Claire has said, it's also a day to remember the journey we still need to make. I pay tribute to the work the Halo Project have put into this charter. This charter demonstrates that we are looking at this type of behaviour in all sorts of fora, in all sorts of places. You know, I was talking to educationalists a few months ago, and they told me that nearly half the victims of sexual abuse in educational institutions knew of at least one other person in the same institution that had also been sexually assaulted. So this is a secret that seems not to be a secret. This is something that people seem to know about, but doesn't seem to be taken very seriously or at all by agencies and institutions. And as we know, every single child virtually in this world will have to go through educational institutions. So that means there is a significant opportunity also for them to be abused and assaulted and neglected, but also an opportunity for them to gain enormous potential for the future. And that's something that we are really keen to work towards delivering. When 8 years ago today, I was in Geneva. I wish I'd go somewhere. I wish I'd be able to go anywhere right now. But 8 years ago today, I was in Geneva at the United Nations doing a talk to the United Nations ambassadors on gender equality. And I was struck by 100 and so ambassadors in the room and the commitment that they all gave to tackling this issue. But they also said that it's difficult to talk about, and it is difficult to talk about. It's also uncomfortable to talk about. When I said there are probably 50 shades of violence against women and girls, I think a lot of people in the room winced. But I told them there were physical assaults, there were sexual assaults, there was rape, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, bullying, stalking, harassment, trafficking, child abuse, child neglect, honor crimes, forced marriage, genital mutilation, forced imprisonment, denial of an education, forced labor, domestic servitude, suicide, homicide. The list goes on. And sadly, the vast majority of perpetrators are men, which is why I am really privileged and honored to be part of this session with you this morning, because we need to be your allies. We need to stand up. I make a commitment every year, every day, that if somebody, a woman or a girl who's suffering abuse, or anybody for that matter, says they are suffering, then I will listen to them, that I will act upon what I have heard. And those are the two things that we need to do more of. We need to be doing a great deal more listening, and we need to do a great deal more action based on that. It's not enough just simply to listen and just simply walk away. You've got to then do something about it. And that's why this charter is so absolutely important, because it's more than a commitment. It's that you will look for ways of being able to address the issue and address the issue right now so that there are fewer victims going forward. Yasmin has already given you the numbers. We are talking about millions of victims across the world, and even that's probably an underestimate because of the nature of this type of crime. We have to ask ourselves, what is it like to be a girl? And we know what it's like to be a girl. Too often, boys are seen as blessings and girls are seen as burdens. And that leads, as we all know, to the terrible abuse that they then will suffer throughout their lives. But the answers are not just simply about the processes and the things that you will do and the things that you are doing. It's also about what we men can do. And we need to challenge each other. And we need to actually ensure that we do not allow people to simply say, well, look, it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. We have a phrase here that violence against women and girls is everybody's business. Everybody has a responsibility here, and it doesn't stop just because you haven't done anything. You've got to make sure that others do. And you've got to, if I hear somebody coming out with sexist or misogynistic language, as undoubtedly happens in every educational institution, I don't simply walk by. You've got to stand up to them and say, that's not enough, that's not good enough. Because if they think that you will walk by or you will laugh with them, then unfortunately they will get suckered. They will feel able to carry on doing that without consequence. But as I said, today is about women. Today is about ensuring that we recognise the contribution that women make to society, which is extraordinary. Well, I'm not here, I wouldn't be here without my mother. I wouldn't be what I am today without all the women in my lives. And it's important in my lives, all the women in my life, but it's also absolutely important that we make sure that we keep this issue at the forefront of our minds and that we work together to tackle this. And you do not do this without the men as your allies. And as I say, I'm absolutely honoured to be your ally. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nazir. A wonderful message there. And I hope we can look back in 8 years' time, if not before, and say how this was such a pivotal moment and that change occurred as a result of this gathering. So thank you so much for those words. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Caroline Wright, who, as I said, is Director General of the British Education Suppliers Association. She was also the recipient in 2017 of the prestigious Outstanding Contribution to Education Award. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Claire, and I feel incredibly honoured to be here on International Women's Day. As Claire mentioned, I'm the Director General of BESA, which is the trade association for British educational companies. And it was through that and working with Claire that I heard about the amazing work of the HALO project. And immediately I was struck by many synergies between what HALO project is trying to achieve and working for and the education companies that I work with. The education companies that I work with, one of the core mission statements we have is helping their commercial success, but through that, by making good quality, high quality educational resources, it's about raising educational outcomes globally. But then I'm really struck by that. You can have amazing resources, but if students don't feel safe and they're threatened in their place, well, you're not going to learn. You're not going to be able to achieve everything you can be if you're suffering from violence and other threats. So I was really struck by how important this work is, and also the aims of the British curriculum. Our suppliers work with thousands of schools around the world, very often on some of the British curriculum subjects, and that's very much about those values of tolerance and equality, and we don't get it right certainly all the time, but we're very much working towards that and trying to learn. And I was very struck by something Yasmin said last week. You know, education is one of the most powerful tools to engage and change the views and to increase women's chances and opportunities. And I think the work of this project, and that's why I'm really proud to support HALO's work on trying to eradicate the sexual violence and the global charter. By doing that, working hand in hand, women's ability to participate, and ultimately by helping women be able to go through their education without the threat of sexual violence, that's going to increase their chances of prosperity and that sort of fortuitous cycle of improving their children's opportunities too. So I'm really delighted to be here, and thank you so much for everything the HALO project is working towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, and I know that there will be lots that we can do together in future. We'll be looking forward to working with you in that way. Next, I'm delighted to introduce you to two of our directors and co-founders of the HALO Project South Africa, Ruth Colversham and Amina Mohammed. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss these important issues with you today. In South Africa, violence is experienced in multiple and intersecting ways, as Nazir alluded to earlier, and this is due to our country's highly patriarchal gender and sexual norms, which are legacies of colonialism and apartheid. According to the Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities, gender-based violence covers a broad spectrum from rape, physical violence, psychological abuse, girl-child abduction and forced marriage, to corrective rape of lesbian women. It takes place in our homes, on our streets, in our schools, at our colleges and universities. It was reported on the news during the first 21 days of the COVID-19 lockdown in South Africa that police had received more than 87,000 gender-based violence complaints. Our country has become accustomed to news headlines about GBV, be it physical assault, mutilation, sexual harassment, rape, gang rape, corrective rape, or even murder. The media play a key role in shaping how society deals with gender-based violence, although extreme cases of physical violence such as femicide often make it into the news. Not every story about other forms of GBV do. The quality of reporting is substandard, lacking critical investigation and provision of context, which places GBV into the broader social issue of gender inequality. Victim blaming often exonerates the perpetrator. Coverage is often overly simplistic, inadequate, and portrays distorted representations of the extent and nature of the problem. In our society, women are depicted as vulnerable, relying on their male supporters and caregivers for protection. They are represented as voiceless, helpless victims who need protection from men, while simultaneously being their property. This difficult position means that women are violated, abused, and robbed of agency by those who should be protecting them. This further disempowers women from taking positive action, and few are even aware that they're victims of human rights violations. South Africa's 2016 Demographic and Health Survey found that 1 in 5 women older than 18 has experienced physical violence. This incidence is higher in poorer households, where at least 1 in 3 women has experienced physical violence. A study in 2017 found that all respondents had experienced violence more than once across different periods in their lives. Over the years, women have fought polyvictimization alone and isolated in their homes. When trying to report violence and abuse at our police stations, women are often told to go home and sort it out, or to consult with their family or the elders in their community. Femicide in South Africa is 5 times higher than the global average. In 2020, Gender Links and the Medical Research Council reported that 3 women die at the hands of their intimate partner every single day. Many of the victims are killed while trying to leave their partners. While there's growing recognition of the magnitude of violence against women in South Africa and of the need to strengthen our response, it's difficult to obtain commitment to and funding for programs like HALO. Through the launch of the HALO Hub Global Charter, we hope to raise awareness of the importance of this program to protect our young women from continued victimization, particularly when young women leave their familiar environments and enter universities and colleges for the first time. We would welcome the opportunity to partner with universities, colleges, and their student population in South Africa to help raise awareness of GBV to protect those who are vulnerable and at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Are you okay, Amina? It's just on mute at the moment.
Just unmute, please.
I think you've just muted again, Amina. Apologies, I can't. You okay? That's it? That should be it now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Thanks, Ruth, for that. We need to change the narrative. And if anything is as blaring as that, is that we need to change the narrative. And in assisting tertiary institutions, perhaps it's prudent to take a look at some of the laws in South Africa that speak to this issue. So there's several progressive and comprehensive laws, policies that support systems that have been implemented in South Africa. So, for example, the South African Domestic Violence Act of 1998, also known as the DVA, and the National Strategic Plan, our NSP, on gender-based violence is aimed at obtaining the necessary political commitment. I say commitment really strongly because that is what we need, and it's required funding Ruth touched on that, for a multi-sectoral response. So we have to really look in the South African context and understand that this issue is intersectional. You know, there are so many contributors to gender-based violence within the South African context. And there are barriers to implementation. One of them is the lack of police resources. You know, we are stretched quite a bit when it comes to that, and trying to get that kind of focus is what is one of the keys. And then there's inadequate training and knowledge. This for me is key to when it actually becomes about changing the narrative. And this is where HALO can help. Our global charter to eradicate student sexual violence sits squarely in this realm. And if you look at it, people who are helped and educated at tertiary institutions and at colleges are more likely to become aware. We're raising awareness. Afzal mentioned that men shouldn't say it's not my problem. Gender-based violence is everybody's problem. And if we take that stance and if we start working with the male students as well in organizations and institutions, that's when narratives start to change. Because one of the other reasons, right, why there is a lack of focus on this is that people are afraid to actually report these incidents. They're afraid because of the stigma within the communities. They're afraid that secondary victimization might occur if they're reporting it to the police, to nurses, to doctors. And this is where education plays a key role. We have to change that narrative. If our women do not feel safe, first of all, to actually speak out about what is happening, how can we then create a safe environment for us to live in? There's also the inability of the poor and the resource-scarce communities to access justice. Here we've seen examples in the UK where students from the hubs are actually taking these educational things into their communities, and they're starting movements within their communities because they've now been empowered. So think about the South African context. If students start with our initiative and they move on, they can filter that into their communities. Collaboration here is really key. And once we start creating the key relationships and collaborating with our police force, with our first responders, and educating them on the importance of gender-based violence, that's actually when we will start changing the narrative. So survivors of gender-based violence, okay, can present many warning signs. They may become withdrawn. They may start practicing self-harm. You'll see eating disorders. They'll start to perform poorly at college. They'll even be absent from college and university. And there may be signs of physical abuse. And also there's almost like an increased surveillance where they have to constantly report to their family members or to their partners. And that's one of the ways we can help. When Nazir mentioned it's everybody's problem, if you notice something like this, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, just inquire, be curious, allow people to know that they're in a safe environment and that they can share it with somebody. So even if they share it with you and you can then take it to the student hubs, to the hubs and help them, that's a step forward. Not everybody who has been abused has the courage or the strength to actually step forward and say this is happening to me. But from many cases that I've been involved in, there were people around that individual that knew what was going on. And so we need to use our voice. We need to choose to challenge. Choose to challenge, you know, and ask in a very nice way. If the person needs help, offer that help. Because this is a global pandemic. It affects everybody. Yasmin referred to how it affects economies. So think about all of the things that can fall into place once we start changing this narrative. So from a South African perspective, where can you get help besides the HALO hubs? There's the Gender-Based Violence Command Center, which is 080-042-8428. You can also dial from your mobile *120*7867#, or you can SMS help to 31531. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a preconceived experience that the police force, doctors, nurses are not to be trusted. So in the event that that's not working for you, let's use these Halo hubs. Let's use the services charter within universities and colleges to actually reach out and help each other. The command center exists to survivors of gender-based violence by providing assistance to ensure that GBV doesn't carry on. I would like us to take it one step further as Halo and start preventing GBV, start educating people. You know, Nazir mentioned about people picking up on patriarchal or misogynistic comments. Start challenging those. It's only once we start challenging those and saying, do you know what you could possibly be perpetuating by saying this in jest or making a blasé statement? Because these are how cultural norms start. And this is how we start changing cultural norms, by bringing to the awareness of people that it is not okay. And I am really excited that we are now being thrown an amazing lifeline in South Africa to start making a difference and to start bringing to the awareness of everybody, especially our youth. Our youth are our future. And if we can start the education and start changing the narrative at that level, then things will start to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. Some really strong messages there, and absolutely this is about changing the narrative, and we're really delighted that we have you and Ruth over there in South Africa flying the Halo flag and helping us to reach many more people out there and beyond. Next, I'd like to introduce Pumela Salala, who, as I said, is the country head for the United Kingdom under BRAN South Africa. Pumela studied in England through a Nelson Mandela Scholarship and is now actually the chairperson of the Scholarship Alumni Association. She was also the 2018 recipient of the African Achiever Award and 2019 winner of the British Award for African Development. Delighted to have you here with us, Pumela. Over to you, please.
The Halo project founder, Yasmin Khan, the co-founders, the management, the volunteers of the Halo project, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Program Director Claire Preston, thank you for the opportunity for me to be part of the launch of the Global Charter to eradicate student sexual violence, a charter that aims to create global learning environment where sexual abuse in all its forms is eradicated. I'm putting a slide of Nelson Mandela as a starting point, and I'm putting it for two reasons. First, because he awarded me the scholarship for me to study here in the United Kingdom in my university years. I was excited, I was eager to learn, I wanted to make a difference in society. Now, I cannot imagine how, with the enthusiasm, with the hunger for education, and the thirst for knowledge, and the drive to succeed in life, that someone would have disturbed that through an act of sexual violence. This project to eradicate student sexual violence is thus close to my heart, as I know how it feels to be a young person and to be a young girl in university with big dreams. Thank you. It is through this lens then that, and through my heart as an empath, that I can feel how heartbreaking and how disturbing it must be for a young girl at university to have her body and her rights violated through an act of sexual assault. The second reason why I've put the face of Nelson Mandela up there is because Nelson Mandela is a point of reference to all of us. because this is the man whom we all look up to as a standard for Ubuntu, a standard for humanity, which is what in South Africa we call Ubuntu. And to me, this is a sense of knowing that as a people, we belong to a single community and that I cannot be without the other. The essence of humanity through my eyes is about caring about another person's welfare and human rights. Jim Rohn once said, all good men and women must take responsibility to create legacies that will take the next generation to a level only we could imagine. Nelson Mandela himself said, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that generation. Let your greatness blossom. I thus wish to commend the Hello Project for putting humanity first in its endeavors, and for the young people who are the volunteers across your Hello Hubs, as they are being the force for change. They are being a generation that will create a future that is different from that which we are seeing today. The next slide I'm going to put is a slide on citation. So during lockdown, I had a moment to watch a film that was released recently by the name of Citation on Netflix. This film, whose slide you're going to see very shortly, is about a student who speaks out after a university professor attempts to rape her, and the reaction of the university institution to the claims that she made. So this film is broadly based on true events. It has generally been agreed that the subject matter of Citation is important to discuss. So Citation is a good film in that it was intended to have a social value proposition. I will spare you the details of the film so that you can, in your own time, take the opportunity to watch it and perhaps screen it at the tertiary institutions through the fundraising activities that you host as Hello Hubs. Thank you, Shannon. In South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, we have Uyinene Mkhwetyana, who was a student at UCT, and at the time of her untimely passing in August 2019, she was only age 19. Her passing, through gruesome and despicable deed, brought to the fore the gender-based violence debate across the country and internationally. The UCT student body and community members at large marched to Parliament to present a memorandum to the President Cyril Ramaphosa to urge the government to put an end to gender-based violence. The President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, responded by indicating, and I quote, "Ending gender-based violence is imperative if we lay claim to being a society that is rooted in equality and non-sexism." He then launched the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide in April last year and made a promise to the women and the children of South Africa that the country would strengthen the criminal justice system in order to prevent women and children from being traumatized again and to ensure that perpetrators face justice. And to give to this effect, 3 pieces of legislation were introduced in Parliament in South Africa last year to make the criminal justice system more effective in combating gender-based violence. And to ensure that perpetrators are brought to book, there is progress that is being made in terms of reducing the backlog on gender-based violence cases. Last month, ladies and gentlemen, South Africa launched a groundbreaking private sector-led gender-based violence and femicide response fund. Several companies and global philanthropies have made pledges to the value of 128 million rand. And over the next 3 years, the South African government will allocate approximately 12 billion rand to implement the various components of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, which is the GBVF. So the message that as a country, South Africa, we are saying to South Africa and other countries is that gender-based violence will only end when everyone takes responsibility for doing so in their homes, in their communities, in their workplaces, in their places of worship, and in their schools. There is a need to continue to provide care and support to the survivors of gender-based violence. And finally, and I'm ending with a slide of the HALO project, I support the belief that in order for students to have a fulfilling life of higher education, they need to feel safe, healthy, and part of a tolerant, inclusive community. I am pleased to note that the HALO project is creating change on campuses across the United Kingdom and further afield. And I wish to applaud the HALO project for creating a global charter that will eradicate student sexual violence and for acknowledging that education is key in tackling all forms of gender violence. It is encouraging to realize that the Global Charter will ensure that support and action is taken to eradicate all forms of sexual violence, and that harassment by raising the status of the victim and taking action against the perpetrator. I would thus like to encourage all to sign up and support the HALO project's work to create a safe environment for all. The Charter provides flexibility from what I see. It provides flexibility in adapting the aims and the objectives and priorities to be country specific so that it is tailor-made for each country, as the aims and priorities may differ from country to country. And so in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, it is significant and it is very timely that we are meeting today on International Women's Day, wherein the theme is Choose to Challenge. And so I challenge that each one of us challenges ourselves as individuals and as a collective to determine what role are we each going to play in creating a safer world for women and girls. And if you agree with this call to action, please raise your hand with me and say, I choose to challenge. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Pamela. I do choose to challenge, and thank you for those amazing words. Change is absolutely necessary. Now is the time for change. And together we can collectively make a difference and take responsibility. Thank you so much. Last but not least, to speak with us this morning and join us with this amazing panel is Nazdamir. Nazdamir, as I said, is the Deputy Head for the UK Region North East at Department for International Trade. She has about 20 years experience of working within different private and public organisations in international environment in the fields of business development, coaching, consulting, leadership, change management, lots and lots of things, too many to mention, but she's worked with about 300 businesses on their growth and change programmes across the globe, and always believes in really getting to the heart of what needs to be done. So you can imagine why we're really delighted to have Naz join us on this panel today as we launch our global charter. Welcome, Naz.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I'm delighted to be with you today, and really I feel proud to have been given this opportunity to speak at this event. I think education always played a very big role in my own upbringing, both on a personal and a career level. I come from a family that both parents were teachers, and as I grew up, I understood that it's very important to understand and recognize that educational settings are not only a place to learn academically, but ultimately it's a place which shapes learners' attitudes and behavior, and subsequently their contribution they make to society in general. it's very important for us to recognize that educational settings are an integral part of the community, and that therefore they must be adequately supported and have the right training available to all those who are involved. That's why today's event is very important, because challenging those the social injustice, challenging gender-based violence in educational settings is a very big step towards ensuring that we have in any country a world-class education which is available to everyone. We know that the UK offers world-class education. It has a global reputation, and this is important in terms of our engagement with international partners and partners overseas to ensure that their sectors, areas where there are lacking of the knowledge, the UK can gap those areas and provide the skills and the innovation that is needed. Today's event is very important because it highlights the importance of international engagement and partnership. And we've heard from Pamela and other colleagues and other distinguished guests around the importance of how an international partnership can develop and can become a gateway to the entire continent. So I think for us, from a trade point of view, what I am looking at is the education sector. It's quite an important element in developing an economic infrastructure and therefore tackle social injustice areas through it. There is a lot of interest among a lot of UK educational sectors to understand more about opportunities in South Africa or in any other country that we are looking at. And those and we should lend a hand to those institutions, to those organizations, to those countries, and establish more partnership, establish more like pieces of work that will fill those gaps in the skills that is most needed. And Halo Projects is in a very good position to play a competitive role in meeting that demand for that developing local capacity. We also know that the right quality education is not just about adequate infrastructure and facilities. In addition to these, they must include the provision that schools and institutions are places where people are feeling safe to learn. Learners are feeling the desire to go. Therefore, the event today, the event that Halo is launching of the Global Charter to Eradicate Student Sexual Violence is a significant step in that direction. It's always very important when we are using tried and tested products on the prevention of sexual violence in education settings that we address these issues, not just for females, but both for female and male learners. We know that sometimes changing cultural norms and behaviors can be challenging, though well-thought approaches and models can lead to raising awareness, acknowledging barriers to change and increasing positive action. I think I want to end my talk by saying Pamela made us all feel very upbeat this morning, and it was a delight to see President Nelson Mandela up there. And I want to just end it by saying when President Mandela spoke in the opening speech to the Parliament in 1994, he declared freedom cannot be achieved unless women have been emancipated from all form of oppression. Our endeavours must be about the liberation of women, the emancipation of the man, and the liberty of a child. I think this statement, his work, should remain an inspiration for all of us while we're working towards such social justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Naz. So much to think about there, absolutely. And we are all striving to work together against social injustice, and some really inspirational words there from you as well as other guest speakers this morning. A lot to take on board. I'm sure that actually people in the guests this morning have probably got burning questions that they would like to ask some of the panelists, and we do have a little bit of time because everyone's been incredibly obedient and compliant with the agenda and timing. So would anybody like to ask a question of any of the panelists this morning? You'd be very welcome to join us with a question if you'd like to. Shannon, were there any questions that were in the chat? Sorry, I wasn't watching the chat, I'm afraid.
There was one from Maria asking Amina and Ruth, but I believe Ruth has answered it. Talking about key stakeholders of the HALO project in South Africa, and if we could elaborate on the student hub's work and maybe give an anonymised example, how we've made a real difference to someone's life and share a success story.
Absolutely, absolutely, very much so. We can do that. We can do that. Okay. Well, if there aren't any specific questions, then I think it would be really good to round up by asking you all. I would like to ask you all, how will you stand with us? How will you do what Pramola says and put your hand up and say, I choose to challenge? How can you take this forward and take some responsibility to make a difference? What we would like to do is to work with partners, partner organisations and individuals who are keen to see this progress and to help us with this charter to eradicate sexual violence. And we will be forming a group of people who would like to work on us with that. So there will be an opportunity to join that forum, and if anyone would like to be involved, then please just let us know. We will be in touch and let you know what's going to happen with that and what our plans are. Regardless of that, there will be another webinar in 6 months' time, because we'd love to update you on what's been happening, talk about progress and how our reach has extended through the work of the HALO hubs and the collective voice here today and outside this digital room. Yasmin, is there anything that you would like to finish on today?
Yeah, I think it's just a summary of the work that's going on in the UK. So this is just to look for more collaboration with other universities where we can establish a tried and tested model of engaging the student population in tackling sexual violence on campus and gender-based violence. There's also a call for international partners. We've already started engaging with South Africa. They're crucial in the development of those resources and those partnerships across the world. And we've got some brilliant partners on the call today, which will enable us to do that. But what we're really looking for is a partnership also that can be transnational and international. So if you are interested or you do have links across other countries, please put your details in the chat and we will be in touch with you. The what happens next question, I'm sure will be on everybody's mind. So what happens next after this pivotal date really in the calendar of International Women's Day is we'll be taking forward those discussions with the partners that we have already established, but also looking to NAS and other partners like Maria on the call to see what other countries we could reach to where we can share the good practice that we've developed through the university hubs. And if you have had a chance to look at the global charter, the charter that we developed, which actually was the launch date for today, is already available through the, I'm sure Shannon will share that with you. But what we want to transfer into the international stage is really working with different governments to ensure we use the right language, we are in line with their political and their legal systems to ensure the commitment is there within the institutions of education, the zero tolerance is there so that whenever individuals have been abused or there's harassment, they can report it in confidence and other actions going to be taken. We want to ensure that the networks are there, we can recruit ambassadors within the universities. That's what's worked really well in the UK. The students really tell us the programs that they want to run within each of the respective universities. And then we're talking about, inter-university debates, having the leadership of the university there to discuss such issues, to ensure that we can signpost victims within education establishments to get the right support that they need, and that the first call of help is a call of help that is supported, because what we've heard time and time again, and by speaking to victims on campus, is they had to navigate their way through services. That simply is not acceptable. We need to ensure that there's a robust system within those universities and help is afforded whenever it's needed. So that's what the kind of aims we're trying to encourage in the international partners where we want to work with. But it really is 4-5 key bullet points within universities, and we're going to encourage those discussions to happen after the meeting today. And then what we need to do is in 6 months' time, look at where we are, how we can, because we have developed toolkits, Claire. I think that's something we didn't mention. So there have been toolkits that have been developed by students to raise awareness within the academic year through their voices, so that they can raise the awareness and also highlight the help that's available. So it sounds really interesting if you're looking at it from a theory perspective, but there is actual meaningful action within each of those university hubs in the UK. And now, because it's been trialled for over 5 years now, what we're able to do is work with international partnerships, because the story really started off in South Africa, and I think that needs to be said loud and clear. We, through the Department of International Trade and Development, how is a small charity involved in that atmosphere? I don't know, but we did through the chair of our charity. We established a very strong partnership with South Africa, and that partnership has evolved, and it's evolved with other partners in terms of the way that the regions are configurated, and we're really looking to develop those partnerships and take forward the Halo hubs within those countries. And within 6 months we'll come back. We don't want to go in every single country of the world. We want to establish those partnerships which really can deliver on making sure those hubs are in existence and we can share with other communities. So this platform is not just about university hubs. This platform we want to create is really to ensure we can really influence governments and policies around decisions being made and programs that are being developed for young people who are experiencing harm, which we all agree. We may have different language in those countries. Even in the UK, there is an awful lot of language debate going on at the moment. As long as the action follows through, that's really important, and that's the aim of the event today, and we're looking for those partnerships.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Yasmin. And you're absolutely right. This is an opportunity for people to get involved. We're not expecting people to just know what to do. We do have a tried and tested toolkit, which has been incredibly popular and successful in universities here in the UK and is completely transferable. But there will be some localization work that might need to be done in certain regions, but we can work. We're very, very keen to work on that with various organisations. So please do get in touch if you would like to be involved in that piece. One final request is if there are any students on this webinar who would like to be involved. We would love to set up a student forum and have a global group which is representative of Halo Hub development internationally. So this is a great opportunity. We would really, really welcome any input from students, or if you know students that might wish to be a global ambassador for Halo Hubs, we'd really love to hear from you. So this really is a roundup now and a call to action for us all to take on board what has been discussed this morning. I really do appreciate everybody's time immensely on this International Women's Day, on top of everybody's existing commitments. Have a wonderful International Women's Day. Please continue to challenge, choose to challenge, not just today, but every day. And thank you so much for joining us. We will be in touch. Many thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you in particular to all of our speakers and to everyone that helped.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Truly appreciate it.